Kerala's religious landscape is anchored by thousands of ancient Hindu temples. For centuries, these institutions have operated under a strict, inflexible set of orthodox rules, governing exactly how, when, and where a deity is to be worshipped. But scattered across the state, you will find baffling exceptions to these rules. There are official morning prayers held on random exterior stone walls. There are grand feasts served directly to empty wooden pillars. There is even a revered goddess worshipped with vulgar, abusive insults. Curious, in a religious system that values absolute purity and strict ritual order, how did these highly irregular practices bypass the authorities to become permanent state-sanctioned traditions? According to local lore, these rituals serve as physical markers of specific moments when the gods allegedly broke their own rules. Almost all of these bizarre traditions trace back to a single historical catalyst, an ascetic saint known as Vilwamangalam Swamiyar. Historical texts and legends describe Swamiyar possessing a unique, almost supernatural trait called mamsa chakshus. This translates to having the ability to see divine beings with the naked, physical human eye, no matter how carefully those gods disguise themselves. Armed with this sight, Swamiyar began visiting the grand temples of Kerala, only to repeatedly discover a striking pattern. The heavy stone idols in the inner sanctums were completely empty. The gods were sneaking out to walk among the mortals. Swamiyar's unique vision allowed him to catch them in the act, and every time he did, his discovery transformed a private divine escape into a permanent public historical record. During one visit to the Vadakkunnathan temple in Thrissur, Swamiyar arrived for worship and found the central shrine deserted. Searching the grounds, he eventually spotted the presiding deity sitting on the southern outer boundary wall. The god was acting as a spectator, gazing south to watch the grand, festive procession of his beloved goddess, Cherthala Kartyayani, taking place miles away. Swamiyar revealed the god's location to the priests. As a direct result, every year during the Malayalam month of Vrishchikam, an official morning puja is held not in the central shrine, but directly on that exact spot on the southern outer wall. The exact same scenario unfolded during a massive festival feast at the Vaikom temple. Swamiyar walked into the shrine to find it empty. He scanned the massive crowds eating in the temple courtyard. There, huddled on the floor beneath a pillar in the northern cloister, he found the deity. The god had disguised himself as a poor elderly Brahmin, so he could sit and eat the feast directly alongside the commoners. Because Swamiyar exposed him, the temple altered its centuries-old protocol. To this day, whenever a feast is held at Vaikom, an extra plantain leaf loaded with food is laid at the base of that pillar. These completely random physical locations, an outer stone wall, an ordinary wooden pillar, became permanent sacred altars because they mark the exact spots where a god chose human connection over divine isolation. At the Ambalappuzha temple, the deity moved from observation to active service. Swamiyar reportedly found him disguised as a lowly servant, personally feeding the marars, the temple musicians, as a thank you for their festival performance. In another encounter, Swamiyar stumbled across 7 divine maidens in a forest. Startled, they fled, leaping into different bodies of water to escape him. The 7th goddess dove into a muddy, overgrown pond in a town that would eventually be named Cherthala. Swamiyar grabbed her, engaging in a desperate physical struggle to drag her out of the thick mud. Exhausted and intensely frustrated by her stubbornness, the holy saint lost his temper. He shouted a highly offensive, culturally shocking, vulgar slur to command the goddess to sit down. That sudden burst of profanity left a permanent mark on the local traditions. Today, the massive Cherthala Temple Festival strictly requires the singing of Puram Patu, a tradition of hurling loud, abusive, and vulgar songs at the deity, all because of Swamiyar's original frustrated curse. Whether the deity was acting as a grateful servant to local musicians or accepting vulgar insults from an angry saint, Swamiyar's accounts forced a highly orthodox religion to absorb the messy, unfiltered realities of human life. When you compile every temple discovery and tradition attributed to Vilwamangalam Swamiyar, a glaring historical twist emerges. The sheer volume of his accomplishments spans an impossible timeline. Regional texts document him interacting directly with famous historical figures, like the author Tunchat Eluchachen and the scholar Talakulatur Batatiri. The problem is, these historical figures lived centuries apart from one another. This timeline maps out the dates of Swamiyar's alleged discoveries and encounters. As you can see, the points stretch across several hundred years, completely dwarfing the biological limits of a single human lifespan. To solve this paradox, historians propose that Vilwamangalam Swamiyar was not an immortal man, but rather a title. It was likely passed down through an unbroken lineage of multiple saints over generations, all operating under the same name. But the literal, biological lifespan of the man matters far less than the tradition he represented. The Swamiyar legends introduced a sense of divine accessibility into the regional culture. It shifted the perception of the divine from distant, untouchable stone entities to present, active participants in the community. Localized legends like these still resonate within the massive crowds of modern Kerala festivals. The core of this temple lore is the enduring belief that deities are not limited to their stone shrines, but are living right alongside the community, hiding in plain sight.